Hey, I'm sitting here doing a reaction. The title of the reaction is "The Man Who Exposed the Crips and Bloods and CIA Connection to Crack Cocaine." When I started it off, I said, man, they might mention two of my partners, Rick or Melvin. I'm about 5 minutes in and they just mentioned Rick Ross, man. What you got to say about the CIA and crack cocaine real quick? Just give me a couple seconds.
It was some fucked up shit that the government was willing to sacrifice the black community to raise money for a war in Nicaragua.
Like with that hustle. Big shout out to SPI, Spotter Low. You know, I'm in the black box, had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned, all that.
Have you ever thought about what El Chapo's living conditions may or may not be behind the wall? Me either. But when I seen this title and thought about it, I said, I bet you the reason why he's in American prisons because they cannot trust Mexico prisons to do the right thing. He has too much power, too much influence on that side of the border. I believe he's escaped from prison multiple times on that side of the border. So he's somewhere in the feds in America. And I saw the title. Y'all see it too. I thought it might be interesting to review. So with no further ado, let's see what they say El Chapo has been up to.
El Chapo is currently holed up in Colorado, but he's not exactly enjoying the mountain views. He's locked away at USP Florence Ad Max, the most secure prison in the world, also known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, or better yet, Supermax. This place isn't just a prison, it's a fortress designed to break even the most dangerous criminals. Inmates spend most of their day in solitary confinement, with tiny soundproofed cells that make sure they barely see or hear another human being. And on today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're going to reveal what El Chapo's life in prison is actually like. In 2019, Joaquin Guzman, also known as El Chapo, was sentenced to life in prison for his
Joaquin, that sounds like a black name little black boys used to have out here in the ghetto. Joaquin.
many crimes as the former head of the Sinaloa drug cartel in Mexico. These crimes included conducting a continuing criminal enterprise, large-scale narcotics violations, drug trafficking conspiracies, murder conspiracies, money laundering conspiracies, and unlawful use of a firearm, which is kind of anticlimactic. And that's why today El Chapo is locked away in the same infamous prison that once housed criminals like Ted Kaczynski. Not that many people feel sorry for him. After all, he once told investigators he personally killed between 2,000 and 3,000 people, the population of a small town. And that's not even counting the countless lives lost to the cartel that he ran, or the devastation caused by the drugs he trafficked. But now that we have the basics, let's walk through a day in El Chapo's life at ADX Florence. 6 to 7 a.m. Guzman wakes up in the morning after a rough night's sleep. As with most prisoners in the Supermax facility, bad sleep quality is a problem. That's partly because his bed is made of cement, one of the least comfortable materials on Earth. There's a thin mat, but no real mattress, just enough padding to keep him from sleeping directly on cold, hard concrete. And if that wasn't bad enough, 3 steel posts rise from the bed's edges, reaching just above the mat. If the guards decide he's a problem, or if they're just having a bad day, they could strap him down at the wrists, legs, and even his head. No plopping into bed for Guzman.
After going so hard for so long to have so much luxury, this has to be the worst part of being incarcerated. He probably would have rather taken himself out. Wonder why that ain't what they do. Do he think he got a chance at getting freedom one day? He probably really do. He probably hope down he could pull something off.
Unless he wants to crack his head on solid steel. He opens his eyes to look around at the 7 by 12 foot reinforced concrete cell that he's trapped in. To put that in perspective, it's about half the size of an average North American parking space, or if you prefer a cozier comparison, almost twice the size of a king-size bed. But that's it. His living quarters are less than your average Walmart parking spot. The reinforced concrete is meant to prevent escape attempts, which is good, considering El Chapo has already escaped from prison twice. In
Yeah, I knew he had got up out that thing.
2001, it was via a laundry cart he hid himself in. His second successful escape attempt in 2015 involved him making his way out through an elaborate tunnel. We'll get back to that one later, as it's influenced his current prison privileges. Neither of those escapes are likely to happen again given El Chapo's current living conditions. The former cartel boss, like other prison inmates, now spends 23 hours in his soundproof and tamper-proof cell. Guzman walks over to his stainless steel sink, which also happens to be his toilet and water fountain. An appetizing mix. Most people start their morning by washing up, brushing their teeth, and freshening
I've been seeing the videos, niggas deep frying chicken in prison in the toilet. Yeah, I don't know how much oil you get, how strong of a stinger. I don't know where they got that idea from. That is disgusting. I mean, I could do without deep fried anything if it got to come out of a prison toilet.
Up for the day, but in Supermax, water is strictly controlled. Every drop is rationed. His sink, his shower, and his toilet are all on timers. And forget about a tap. There isn't one. It could potentially be broken off and used as a weapon. So Guzman brushes his teeth and washes his face as quickly as he can. Then he goes back to his bed to wait for his meal. 7 to 8 a.m. In most prisons, inmates go down to the mess hall for food, but in a Supermax, wardens want to prevent inmates from socializing, leaving their cells, or posing any danger to the guards as much as possible. So here, Guzman gets room service. A guard slips a food tray through a small slot in the metal cell door. Guzman grabs it and he looks over the day's offerings. Stale bran flakes, an apple, and a cup of oatmeal, with a texture so thick he could probably use it to add some padding to his concrete bed. At least there is one luxury: 2 cartons of milk. One of the only ways that prisoners in Supermax prisons can protest their conditions is via hunger strikes, which happen relatively often. But in this case, a hunger strike might be a better option, as according to his former prisoners, the quality of this food feels like it's part of their punishment. He gulps it all down and passes the tray back through the slot to the guard. The guard inspects the tray to make sure Guzman didn't break off a piece to use in a potential escape, and then he leaves. 8 to 9 a.m. Suddenly, one of the rarest events Guzman can experience in his prison cell occurs. A small shaft of sunlight hits the wall opposite the window. The sun must be at exactly the right angle today. Part of the inmates' punishment at Colorado's Supermax facility is being completely deprived of sky and sunlight. To pay for their crimes, inmates basically get zero access to the outdoors.
That's enough design to drive you crazy or to subdue you into extreme submission.
The window in Guzman's prison cell is small, and when we say small, we mean it is tiny. And it's designed in a way that prisoners can't actually see the landscape around them. They only get a tiny glimpse of the prison roof and a sliver of the sky if they're lucky. Part of the reason for this construction is to stop El Chapo and every other prisoner from being able to understand exactly where their cell is in relation to the prison layout. This is meant to prevent coordination with the outside world in order to organize escape attempts. In case any prisoner starts to get an inkling of where in the prison they're located, some extra security measures help deter them. Namely, that no prisoner stays in one cell for too long. But we'll get to that soon. In the meantime, Guzman shuffles off to the one place in his cell where he can almost feel the sunlight, and he just enjoys that for the time being. We never said life in a Supermax prison was particularly exciting.
Do y'all think he regretted his lifestyle and decisions and wish, and while he in there, do you think in his mind he like wish, man, I should have just been a regular dude, man, got a regular job, and or you think he feel like it is what it is? Let me know in the comments.
9 to 10 a.m. Now it's back to one of El Chapo's favorite pastimes in prison. Is it frantically doing push-ups, planning revenge on his enemies? Nope, it is letter writing. Guzman writes lots and lots and lots of letters from prison, several hundred of them at this point. Most of them are in Spanish, since his English isn't great, and a lot are addressed to his lawyer or the judge who oversaw his case. Guzman sits at the concrete desk and chair in his cell, and he gets out a pen to write. All of the concrete in-room furniture is secured to the ground so he can't use it to aid in an escape or in attacks against the guard. And the pen Guzman is working with isn't all that normal either. To prevent prisoners from harming themselves, the Supermax controls what items they have access to. While most people think this just includes the obvious weapons, knives, ropes, and guns, the list is actually pretty extensive. And that's because after years of staring at nothing but concrete, prisoners tend to get pretty desperate and pretty creative when it comes to finding a way out. So the pen Guzman writes with is about the size of a crayon, made of rubber, and unfortunately for him, just a little floppy. Not exactly great for writing, but there's a reason for it. Hardwood and metal pens can be turned into weapons, dangerous to both guards and inmates. And in Supermax, they're not taking the risk. Guzman sets about writing his latest complaint about the lack of visitation rights for his wife, Emma Coronel, and daughters. His 2 daughters are studying in Mexico, so any visit would require a bit of travel and coordination. In 2021, Guzman's wife was also sentenced for drug trafficking. Who doesn't love a family business? Since her release in 2023, the judge has been reluctant to let Emma visit Guzman, mainly as she was one of the people who helped El Chapo escape prison the last time. 10 to 11 a.m. Guzman sits back on his bed to do one of the only other things he can: watch TV. It's a 13-inch screen and the only programming allowed is educational, religious, and some recreational content. One report says that some Netflix movies and DVDs are also available as long as they're rated PG. So El Chapo probably can't watch El Chapo in his cell, which is a real shame. He's more likely to find the prison recreation department's channel playing yoga and step aerobic tutorials. But it is better than staring at concrete, marginally. 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. The guards show up outside of his cell. Must be an exercise day. They slowly unlock the heavy reinforced metal door and order Guzman to step up to the bars. It's standard procedure. First a full frisk, then the shackles. Only when he's fully restrained will they escort him from the cell. Reports vary on exactly where Guzman gets to exercise. Some prisoners use an exercise pit. There might even be more than one. But when we called the warden to confirm, we were told to mind our own business. El Chapo probably doesn't get to visit the semi-outdoor cage. Instead, he gets about 1 hour per week to exercise, likely in an indoor cell. He's never alone, always escorted there by 2 to 3 guards. And even then, he stays shackled the entire time. So yeah, we're guessing burpees aren't really on the workout plan. Maybe if he behaves himself, Guzman could earn access to a semi-outdoor cage. But even then, it's not exactly a breath of fresh air. It's still mostly enclosed, shielding him from elements and sunlight, so don't.
This time I'm asking y'all not what he thinks. I'm asking what y'all think. Is it worth it? The millions and billions and living in the hills and having to get it taken away like a civilian and then be a convict going through all this bullshit or heart shape, whatever you call this?
Expect a scenic jog. Prisoners in Supermax pace around a tiny concrete courtyard boxed in by barbed wire, while armed guards watch from the towers, ready to take a shot if needed. Not exactly the best spot for a relaxing morning Pilates session. And then, as suddenly as one of the only hours outside of his cell began, it ends. The guards escort Guzman back. He shuffles shackled up down the hall toward his cell. 12 to 1 p.m. Lunchtime. Not exactly that Guzman actually worked up a sweat or anything, but it's still good to get another meal. Well, actually, considering in 2018 the Supermax was spending $3.50 for each inmate's meals per day, maybe it's not that good. And as the lunchtime tray is slipped through the door, he realizes it is as disappointing as usual. A small hamburger, unsalted potato wedges, fruit that may have expired some point last year, and ketchup. The potatoes are cold, the burger's so hot he can't touch it for 20 minutes. Everything is completely unseasoned except for only one spot on the patty that apparently had an entire salt shaker dumped on it. This Supermax must cause weight loss. 1 to 2 p.m. Guzman bangs on the bars and the walls to get a guard's attention. He knows the cell is soundproof, but he figures he'll try anyway. There's not much else to do. He's supposed to get at least 2 15-minute phone calls per month, ones he'd love to use not only to catch up with loved ones, but to confer with the lawyer filing his appeal.
But can you imagine how fast them calls go by? Sheesh.
However, as Guzman recently complained in one of his many, many letters to the judge overseeing his case, he's been in the Supermax for a year and have only been authorized 9 telephone calls to my attorney. Realizing once again that no one can hear him banging, he sits down to write another angry letter about how life in Supermax sucks. 2 to 3 p.m. Wow, today is really full of activities for El Chapo compared to a regular day in this prison cell. It's moving day. As we mentioned, the Supermax constantly keeps prisoners unaware of their location and their surroundings as one of its top priorities. To this end, prisoners get moved every 3 months from one cell to another. If they ever get an inkling of where in the Supermax facility they might be, they immediately get thrown off again. And if you think that the move itself creates a possible opening for the prisoners to escape, think again. Once again, the guards frisk El Chapo and shackle him so they can take him through the hallways. And there is no ordinary hallways. These hallways have 1,400 different remote-controlled steel doors. If there's ever an escape attempt, a violent outburst, or any other emergency, the response is instant. With one press of a button in the control room, the entire prison locks down, every door sealed, every movement stopped, until the issue is identified and order is restored. Slowly, El Chapo makes his way through the halls with the guards close by his side. Everything looks the same. Nothing gives him a clue as to where he was or where he might be going until eventually he gets to a door that looks just like his old door, and he walks in with his handful of belongings and he waits to see what he'll find. 3 to 4 p.m. Part of the reason Guzman is anxious about his new cell is because some of them hold unpleasant surprises. It's not uncommon to walk into a new room and find the walls smeared with feces. And as you might imagine, some prisoners that have been in the Supermax for years mentally fall apart. Some had, well, let's say, issues to begin with.
That's not illegal to not sanitize that room before y'all put him in there. He better start putting some of that in them letters he writing, all that other shit.
Guzman walks in and thankfully he sees no feces on these walls. That's a good day. He looks at the same 4-inch window, the same concrete bed, and gets ready to settle into the exact same routine as usual. 4 to 5 p.m. There's one trick prisoners can use in the Supermax to communicate with each other, and El Chapo figures now's the time to check who his neighbor is and hope it's someone he can occasionally chat with. Lots of notorious criminals are locked up in the Supermax. The shoe bomber, the Boston Marathon bomber, the Unabomber. There's probably non-bombers there as well, we assume. Maybe he'll end up speaking with one of them. To attempt to communicate, El Chapo takes a toilet paper roll and he holds it over either the sink or the shower drain. He'll try both to see which works. He blows through the roll as hard as he can to clear the pipes of any water they might have in them, creating as open a communication channel as one can get at the Supermax. Then, continuing to hold the roll over the drain, he talks into it. Hola, hablas español? After a while, a response comes back. Hello, no, but I can talk. Since El Chapo's English isn't the best, he exchanges a few words with, well, whoever it is, holding on to those precious few moments of human connection. 5 to 6 p.m. It's time for some light reading. Prisoners are allowed to ask for books out of the prison library, always subject to good behavior, of course, and they can read them in their cell. Once again, the language barrier makes reading a little difficult for El Chapo, but he manages to muddle through. There is one light in his cell that's controlled by the guards. Without it, it's pretty dark in his room, no matter what time of day it is. With it, Guzman has enough light to make out the words on the page and read. He sits on his bed with his latest book and he passes the time. This is a huge change of pace from his first prison experience in Punta Grande. There, he managed to run his whole drug empire from inside of the prison. Perhaps one of the many reasons he's not allowed to make frequent phone calls now. There would be parties, yes, parties all the time. With a long sigh, Guzman sits back and wonders why he ever tried to escape his first prison, where he was having as close to the time of his life as he can have behind bars. 6 to 7 p.m. The last meal of the day slides underneath El Chapo's prison door, signaling that soon it'll be time for bed. Tonight's delicacy is meatloaf. Not that any particular
Thought they said he came through a slot in the door. Now it's going under the door. Details.
flavor of meat can be identified, a scoop of potato, the most flavorless gravy known to man, and 2 pieces of bread. Even though the meal is anything but appetizing, eating at least gives Guzman something to do for the next hour. Slowly, he chews on his meal. The meatloaf in particular requires a lot of chewing, and he wonders how many days he's been in the Supermax at this point. Time seems to blend together when you're having no fun at all. 7 to 8 p.m. Guzman decides to take a quick shower. The water seems to be on right now before getting ready for bed. He doesn't get nearly as much water as he'd like since the shower is timed. That's a safety precaution so prisoners don't accidentally drown in their cells. While washing himself, Guzman looks down at the shower floor and he's reminded of his last escape attempt in 2015 from Altiplano in Mexico. His associates dug a tunnel under the prison that connected to a hole in his shower floor. One night, Guzman slipped away through the hole, and by the time the guards were alerted, he'd already hopped on a motorcycle that
Yeah, there ain't gonna be none of that about it. He could think about it all he want.
had been left for him, and he drove away. The water flow now stops completely. Guzman dries himself, puts on his clothes, and goes back to his book in bed. His back and head are in agony, like they have been for days. Unfortunately, medical attention doesn't come quickly in a Supermax for anything other than dire emergencies. In September 2021, Guzman submitted an affidavit to a U.S. court, essentially saying that his physical and mental health were falling apart. Something about the total lack of sunlight, social contact, family contact, and no hope of escape before death. I have suffered a lot, Guzman writes, due to the treatment in AdMax. I now suffer from headaches, memory loss, muscle cramps, stress, and depression. I have suffered a lot.
You don't understand. That's exactly what they was hoping to accomplish. Yeah, boy, you enemy number one. They want to fuck you all the way over, break you all the way down. And you announcing that is just satisfying them. They happy to hear it.
Suddenly, the light switches off. Guzman lies down and gets ready to sleep. As the light being off means the power to the TV is off as well. He closes his eyes, trying to drift off into a fitful sleep, but he knows it won't last. At some point, the guards will come through, making their rounds, banging on his door, just to remind him that privacy doesn't exist here. It's just another part of the Supermax life, and another thing he complained about in a recent letter. And so ends another day at Supermax. There is some kind of method to the madness behind El Chapo and most prisoners at the Supermax's daily routine. No one has escaped since ADX Florence was founded in 1994, and Guzman has spent time in cell block H and range 13, which are reserved for the worst offenders. That being said, Groups like Amnesty International agree that El Chapo deserves to remain in prison for life and kept away from innocent people, but they argue this kind of treatment in prison facilities crosses the line into inhumane. The ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, called Supermax prisons cruel, inhuman, and degrading. Many everyday citizens don't really care, as El Chapo is responsible for the murders of thousands of people at least, and what happens to him doesn't trouble most members of society. But many now say it's a myth that only the worst criminals are locked up in a Supermax facility. Eric G. King of Kansas City got sentenced to 10 years in prison at 29 years old for throwing 2 Molotov cocktails into a local congressional office. The Congressman Emanuel Cleaver II was not in his office at the time, neither was anyone else, as it was 2:52 a.m. Essentially, it was arson of an empty building and property damage. But since King got into fights in a couple of other prisons he was held in, eventually he ended up in Colorado's infamous Supermax. He described his experience in a Reddit AMA. After years, the silence or kind of silence becomes its own noise. You can become immobile, psychological issues start to pop up. No one's there for you. No one cares if you get hurt, sick, mentally unwell, if the food is horrible, or if you're sad or having a depressing week. You are on your own in every way for years. The silence and the isolation are two constants in every one of El Chapo's days at the Supermax, slowly eroding his sanity and whatever existed of his humanity in the first place over time. Even Robert Hood, an ex-warden of the prison, had only bad things to say about it. This is not built for humanity. I think that being there day by day is worse than death. Do you think El Chapo's treatment in Supermax is fair, or is it too extreme? Should prisons be this harsh, even for the world's most dangerous criminals? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. In the meantime, check out El Chapo versus Pablo Escobar. How do they compare? Or click on this video instead.
I would imagine or assume that's exactly what they was trying to do to dude. Break him down. They have all kind of psychological studies way before they built that place in, when did they say, 1994, of what these type of conditions would do to a human. It's not unintentional. Like he said, if he bragged or boast or claimed to have killed thousands, there is absolutely no sympathy for him amongst those making these decisions. I bet you that.
Let me tell you, you don't have the skills, son, to fuck with us down here. Let me just be blunt. You don't have that skill, okay? So play all fucking day long, because we got all night, all right? I promise you that. You don't have the skill to fuck with us down here.
I don't have a job, so I'll be here all
That's right.
day.
And how about your 12 grand that you put in the bank, or was put in the bank? Guess who's got it?
All right.
We do.
Do you even know about that?
I don't know, tell me.
I don't think he does.
I don't think you do either.
Wasn't that puzzle? Big shout out to SPI, Spotter Low. You know, I'm in the black box, had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned, all that.